Unity has unified gamers, developers, and stock owners against him. The Sag Aftra strike might hit the video games industry. XDefiant is such a buggy mess that it failed its certifications for both PlayStation and Xbox. Then we dredge up Baby's first Cthulhu story. Valve has some surprises and cheap games up its sleeves, and maybe a new VR headset. Then things get blasphemous. 2.
Hi, I'm Nick, and despite your stories of dark terrors from the deep, I unfortunately were there when they were written.
Hi, I'm Josh, and I'm excited to announce my own strike with hookers and blackjack.
And I'm Andy. You are watching Video Game Tango. Or listening, because I keep saying watching. Hey!
Oh!
We're here to talk
Tango
to
time, baby.
about video games.
Let's all just talk at the same time.
Video games!
On 3. 1, 3, go.
Okay, let's
It was just me, damn it.
I am a cruel and unusual.
I said things, and Josh is like, it's just me.
Well, you know.
We have news straight
Yes, we do.
into your earballs from the OmniNet.
Werewolf facts. as
Werewolf facts.
know
Turns
them.
out,
Ow.
not dogs. A whole different clade. You can thank taxonomy for that. What is up first on the docket? Because I forgot.
God damn it. We just...
I have a
Unity.
medical condition,
Unity.
sir.
Unity.
Unity, faith, healing. Everyone is coming together to hate on Unity. I don't know if you've been listening, dear listener, but Unity, which is a company that makes a product and another product called Unity and Unity Runtime, make a engine for people to create video games. They are the base rules upon which video games are made, kind of a language to talk to computers. There are other engines, EA, and they make
Unreal 5
and
is like,
Godot
that's going to be one people are going to recognize right away.
Frostbite. There's a whole bunch of different engines.
There's a lot.
Important thing is that Unity, for a long time now, has been used quite frequently, ubiquitously by a lot of people because they're relatively cheap. Unreal isn't ridiculously expensive, but it is expensive. A lot of people are just trying to make games, right? They're just trying to make game, trying to build base, and Unity works for that.
And the learning curve for Unity, too, is relatively small in comparison to some of the other engines, as I understand.
Yeah, it's like I know Kung Fu level, easy compared to some other languages and engines, right? That said, Unity, as of some time ago, recently swapped out their CEO for a guy named John. I've already
John
forgotten his
Unity.
name. We've been talking for 2 hours now, precast. John Unity is the CEO who previously worked at EA, and he's on record of having a meeting discussing monetization and how developers could be doing it better. He gave the example of why not when a person is 50, 60 hours into a game that's a shooter and they run out of bullets in their clip, you charge them $1 for more ammo. Because sunk cost fallacy says, oh, I'm in this far deep already. What's another $1? He thought that was a good idea. It's a great idea to make money off whales and children that have their parents' bank accounts. But this is the kind of person we're dealing with. And as of just a few days ago, about a week and a half after selling 2,000 shares of his stock, Unity has now announced, and here's the main buried the lead thing, that they are going to change their monetization scheme, because that's what I'm going to call it. Instead of some upfront costs for using their product, they've now decided that as of January 1st, games using the Unity engine will be looked at retroactively to take a measure of the gross volume of sales and sales made, as well as gross revenue, not profit. And if a threshold is reached, depending on which tier of Unity you use, depending on how important you are, blah, 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 they're going to start charging money to the developer, in most cases, per install of games using Unity. This is a metric that is going to be tracked by some internal algorithm that Unity has.
Oh, I don't like that.
That is most definitely not actually phoning home from your computer, because that would be a probably illegal version of DRM that I think things like the GDPR would not allow. But they're basically going to estimate it using Eldritch math and figure out, okay, you've sold this, not sold. your game has been installed this many times, therefore we're going to charge you on a sliding scale. The more money you make, the less money they charge. So I think it starts at 200,000 units sold or installed.
So I was going to go over that, but as I was scrolling through just now for the Unity blog, hopefully you've still got it up.
I mean, I can open up some of these things here. Are they changing?
So
live news.
It is live news. I don't know if they're changing it, but they have taken down their entire blog, it looks like.
Oh, yeah. It's probably because they're getting bad press.
So,
I wonder why.
The Unity site still works, but the Unity blog will not load.
According to this article from The Guardian, Unity stipulated that the fee would only be chargeable after a game made, quote, 200,000 American dollars in 12 months and had at least 200,000 lifetime game installs. That sounds like a lot, right? Okay, your game is made $200,000, note, in revenue, not in profit, and you've had a 200,000 lifetime installs, you must be doing pretty well, right? Well, what happens if you give away CD keys? What happens if your game blows up or you put it on like a service like Microsoft Game Pass? These are questions that weren't very well answered yesterday when this news popped. And in some cases, some devs are looking at a cost to Unity that is more than they've made on the game. Hundreds of thousands of dollars they're now going to owe Unity as of January 1st, because some of these things are going to be retrospective in the way that they look at your sales and whatnot. This basically means that single A, double A indie devs are going to get fucked over and reamed. People who've been the last 1, 2, 3, 4 years developing, learning Unity and using it in a project for a game they plan on releasing soon. Well, come January 1st of next year, they're not going to get charged out the asshole for something that they don't have control over and something that is going to be estimated again by some strange math that we don't know how that works. It's upwards of 20 cents per install, which doesn't sound like a lot to someone who's not in the realm of game dev. But sometimes that's literally your profit margin.
Yeah,
is 20 cents per copy sold. This also doesn't account for the fact that this charge occurs per installation per device. So I don't know, let's say you make a game that has a mobile port or a Switch port or plan on putting on the Steam Deck. Because how many people have games they own a Steam Deck and they have it on their PC on their Steam Deck? Those are two different installations, right? That's double the fee charged. Unity quickly clambered today and tried to answer a bunch of questions, but Twitter's blowing up. Devs are blowing up on Reddit. They're basically saying, you just fucked a bunch of people. This is completely out of the realm of reason. We agreed to pay a price when we bought your license, and yeah, your EULA says that you can change it whenever you want, but not like this, right? Like, I guess you're legally allowed to do this, Unity, but you're shooting yourself in the foot. So we had just read an article. I closed it because I'm a bad YouTube host. That not only the CEO, but a few other people, including the arbiter of growth or some strange Machiavellian title for Unity, 2 or 3 important people at Unity have sold over $4 million in shares in the last 2 weeks, and then came out with
that's shady as fuck.
It's shady as fuck, and not illegal.
Sadly, not illegal.
We live
but
under capitalism. Yeah, and then they announced this news. At the end of the day, CEOs come in, say they're going to make a bunch of money for a company, end up taking a bunch of money, turning the company into dust and bones, and then move on to their next kill. Right?
Yeah.
I don't have a lot to add other than this seems par for the course for greedy executives. It is a matter of time before new forms of monetization, excuse me while I try not to vomit, start cropping up in the weirdest places, like game engine development, right?
Yeah.
It's reasonable to increase your costs. It's reasonable to say, hey, inflation, hey, COVID, hey, we're not making money. We need to increase our costs. It's another to say, we're going to make up the strangest, most Byzantine monetization method on something that we can't track. We have to estimate that you don't get a say over, something that game dev has no control over installations, right? So a lot of game devs, I was reading on Twitter just before the cast, are like, well, guess December 31st, I'm taking my game off the internet. Can't buy it anymore. Or I'm capping my game sales at 199,000 copies.
And there are ways to do this right. Like, it's not great to put this cost on small developers, but people that were to buy licenses for Unity in the future, if they had said in 4 months we're going to change the pricing scheme for new users of our engine, then that's one thing. But to hit existing users and game devs with this, like after the game has launched or while they're in the middle of making a game, imagine if you're like 90% of the way making your game, you're a month from launch.
Happening
for
a lot of people right now.
For sure.
Or looking at your sales retroactively to charge you for, how does that doesn't...
They do it because they can.
Yeah.
That seems...
it's legal. It's not right.
Seems... It's gonna not beyond unfair. I don't know what to call it. It seems beyond unfair.
It's greed. So yeah, that's the major news topic of today.
Yeah.
So
what else you got to add?
Well, I was gonna say, in avoidance to get hurt, some of these small developers, like you said, are just going to cap their game sales at 199,000, which means that that's going to hurt us consumers as well, because that means we're not going to be able to get to play games. If a game gets popular and you want to play this popular game, well, it's already going to be delisted because they cannot take a $5 million hit in the way EA is simply just going to, I guess, write a check if someone's using that,
or more likely
just using their own engine.
The way you brought it up earlier, Josh, is that they're just going to have to increase their prices.
Yeah.
And then a game might not do as well because we all know that expensive games, you're competing with a lot of really fucking big name titles.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you're an indie game, you cannot afford to charge $30, $40 for your game.
If initially your asking price was going to be $2, and now in order to make a profit, you have to be at $10, you're going to be competing with the likes of like Valheim.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to be competing with
big fucking
viral games at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, it's really fucked up. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. Is it? Yeah, sure, it might be illegal, but it's not right.
Yeah.
You know, there were certainly better ways to fucking monetize than this.
Honestly, with how he said it's like capitalists coming in, turning a thing to dust, and then moving on to the next kill. That if you were looking for a way to kill the Unity engine, this seems like a perfect way to do it, because why would I use that when I...
And why would you use it in the future?
Yeah,
like,
why
if
would
they're
you
gonna
use
do
it in
this
the
now,
future?
there's no more trust. That trust is gone.
So, yeah, I mean, that kind of feels like what it is. You know, go in, have Unity take on a bunch of debt, sell off as much stock as you can, drive the company into the ground, declare bankruptcy, move the fuck on.
Yeah. And if you want proof, look up Unity stock right now. That bar
Yeah.
graph does not lie. It's tanked because everyone is upset. Oh, big fucking surprise, right? Out of all the ways they could have made more money,
Yeah.
I've never heard of someone charging per installation except for like HVAC employees.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like getting a toilet installed.
Well, and
you're charged
retroactively.
it's like, how many toilets have you installed in your lifetime in your houses? Because we're going to charge you for those, you know?
Well, how many? No, you ask the HVAC guy how many air conditioners have you installed, and he's going to say like probably 200 or so. And then they're going to go to the homes of those people and be like, "Hey, you owe us retroactively for the installation of your new air conditioner."
What they're going to do is they're going to take a shot and pull out a napkin and do some math and be like, "Okay, we're estimating that you've installed this many HVACs, and we're going to charge you that much money."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just bizarre. It's
Yeah.
very bizarre. But this is coming from the minds of people that have a very simple, clear-cut, concise method of operating. How to make as much money as possible as fast as possible. And at the end of the day, I'm also the mindset, I'm thinking now, like Adam was talking to me about Destiny monetization for this year and like some hijinks they're pulling.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, like what is an expensive thing in Destiny? This is slightly related, I promise. It's like $100 and you get the game for a year. That includes 4 season passes, the dungeon pass, because you have to pay for certain dungeon content, and some other things. And I think to myself, like $100 a year for entertainment for one game, not bad, given that like the price of a box of Cheerios is $8.99 right now in the store. But on the other end, it's still not okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I know we're so used to paying like $50, $60 for like the AAA games, and they got to increase the prices, got inflation, all this. But it's one thing to be like, hey, our licenses, they got to go up. I'm sorry, we can't be giving away Unity so much often anymore. We have to find ways to make revenue. And it's another just to come out of fucking the leftists of left fields and charge per installation retroactively.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
You can't charge people fucking retroactively. That's the
They
crux
can.
of it.
They can. That's the problem.
Right.
You should.
But we're morally speaking,
Yeah.
it's immoral to do that.
If you want to keep trust of your users, you can't do retroactive charging
Yeah.
and stuff. That's just not a thing you can
Again,
do.
there were ways to do this right by increasing the cost of a license for Unity for people that are looking into buying Unity.
Yeah.
Right.
It reminds me a lot of WotC's big issue with the D&D OpenGL license. Like
Yeah.
they thought, Hasbro thought they could get away with something, but the tabletop community is a different beast than the video game community, and it was tight-knit enough that they're like, nah, that's not going to happen. I don't think we can necessarily for sure get away with that with Unity, right?
Yeah.
If enough people throw enough clamor, I'll put my money down and say there's probably going to be some kind of retraction and like going back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
They'll probably use that word, right?
There is hope for that, being that the blog is right. So it's possible that they're being like DDoSed right now for their actions.
Yeah, their website's
Certainly.
not loading.
Yeah, no, an unexpected error has occurred whenever you try to go to Unity blog.
Yeah.
It's also possible that they took down the blog because of the bad press it's getting, and they're going to re-announce something.
Yeah.
Especially because they are traded. I don't know if they're public.
Yeah, dude, if I was a shareholder in
Yeah.
Unity right now, oh my God, I'd
yeah.
have a fucking heart attack.
Yeah.
How angry I would be that like the CEO pulled his fucking hijinks.
If your stock price plummets, then as a CEO, you are legally obligated to fix that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe there's going to be some big change. Who knows? It's getting enough backlash that I wouldn't doubt it. But especially with the blog being down right now, I could certainly see that happening.
Guess we'll find out. Ongoing saga.
Yeah. Well, we will have updates, of course, next week.
Of course, we'll give everybody update up. But I mean, honestly, speaking of corporations, corporating, capitalists, capitaling. We have entered, I think we're just over 130 days of the Sag Aftra WGA strike.
Kudos to them.
Yeah, just stay strong out there, guys. I mean, keep putting it to them. In fact, one studio has kind of already caved and agreed to their active demands. Studio
Ooh.
A24 is right now able to produce stuff with WGA writers and SAG Aftra actors. There's
Good on them.
because they're like, well, okay, we need to produce shit. Here we go. We'll just agree to the terms. About a week ago, a little over a week ago, SAG Aftra's national board voted unanimously to ask members to authorize a strike against 10 video game companies. These companies include the likes of Take-Two Entertainment, Rockstar's parent company, WB Games, EA Games, and Activision. So some of the
Who started this again?
This is SAG Aftra.
Oh, SAG Aftra is going against them. Okay.
So SAG Aftra has a contract deal with video games. Obviously, it's not as big as like TV and entertainment and that, but there are plenty of actors who lend their voice and their likeness to games. One that comes to mind easily for me is Eric Moynihan. I can't remember the guy in Star Wars. That is very much a likeness and his voice, and he would not be allowed to participate in making that game or making the third game if this strike goes on.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm kind of for it. It's good to see labor coming back at it, because there's plenty of actors that are going to be SAG actors that aren't, say, the dude in Star Wars, but are lending their voice in Bethesda things, are lending their voice in numerous small background characters. Those are some of them Sag Aftra actors. They are fighting very much the same fight that they're fighting against the studios. They want protection against AI voice capture and motion likeness. They want protection against AI capture of stunt workers. The same basic asks that they're going after for the movie things, and these 10 companies are not able to agree to it. So the vote for a strike comes near the end of the month here. I believe it's September 26th or 27th is when SAG-AFTRA votes to strike against these companies, and so there might be yet another.
I wish them luck. It's
Right?
a leviathan of a wall to climb because they're trying to fight technological progress, and that rarely goes well.
Yeah.
So,
But I
we'll
hope
see
it
how that
does.
pans out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of oopsies in the gaming industry, let's talk about Ubisoft and their upcoming title, XDefiant, for a second.
Cool.
I know the fucking name, dude.
I like when you said oopsies. I didn't think about the content you're bringing up. I just thought the company in general is an oopsie.
It's an oopsie. So, XDefiant was supposed to launch this summer. They were hoping for originally an August launch, but I'm going to read this verbatim here. Ubisoft published a new blog post by executive producer and director Mark Rubin, revealing that XDefiant will receive a delay due to its failure involving PlayStation and Xbox certification. Rubin notes that the certification process began at the end of July, and the development team received a not pass in mid-August. According to Rubin, XDefiant did not pass the certification due to compliance and functionality bugs that must be addressed before a successful release on PlayStation and Xbox platforms. Ubisoft will work on remedying functionality bugs to ensure that XDefiant's gameplay features and shooting mechanics are working as intended, and the platform holders will continue working on compliance bugs that relate to system features such as trophies, friend list compatibility, and other platform-specific elements. Ubisoft worked on fixing the game's bugs for roughly 3 to 4 weeks, according to Rubin. The company will submit XDefiant for certification in 1 to 2 weeks. If XDefiant passes certification, the game's release will be scheduled for mid to late September. However, XDefiant could potentially receive a conditional pass, which would require Ubisoft to develop a day one patch and delay the release to early to mid-October 2023 instead. Rubin is unable to reveal an exact release date, but Ubisoft plans to share more information about XDefiant once it passes the certification for PlayStation and Xbox.
That's saying something, because I've seen the hot garbage that's made it onto PlayStation and Xbox. So
basically, even they said, look, like, we let your other Assassin's Creed games through.
Right.
They were barely holding together. What they tried to proffer is like, we're ready to sell this game was so bad that it didn't even pass baseline certification.
I mean, they literally bring it's a fucking shooter, first of all, but they bring in they're going to work on functionality bugs to ensure that their gameplay features and shooting mechanics are working as intended.
I like how functionality bug is a fancy PR way of saying our game doesn't
our game's broke.
work.
Like, for a game that's supposed to have already released potentially, they were hoping.
But we're still going to charge you $10 for skins.
Yeah.
All those pre-orders.
This is after a July beta test where players were not happy with the state of the game.
Hey, the game doesn't work.
Now, there have been plenty of streamers like Shroud has been pretty vocal about how he's looking forward to this game coming out after they iron out some bugs and stuff. Well, maybe it's possible. I mean, he definitely does do some sponsored streams, but I think right now people are definitely looking for the next big competitive shooter. So
all I'm saying is, if a game doesn't pass baseline console requirements for functionality, if a streamer's vouching for the game, it's because they were paid.
I don't think he's vouching for the game as much as he's looking forward just to another shooter.
Who was looking forward to a shooter that was going to release when it doesn't function?
Well, that wasn't out in the ether yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is brand new. This news is as of today.
Okay.
Where Shroud's comments, I watch Shroud regularly. Shroud's comments are like, really hope XDefiant's good, because that's probably like if it delivers on its promises, it's probably going to be the next big shooter.
Game's good. You kind of learn after a while just to stop trusting Ubisoft.
I was going to say, honestly, that for me, I mean, kind of a bummer on XDefiant, but I that wasn't lifting my needle at all.
Yeah.
But it does make me hella sus on their Assassin's Creed that is coming, their new game that is coming out. What barely tailored together poopy are they going to offer there? It makes me even more scared for my beloved Star Wars title that they have been throwing out there as like, hey, this is going to be like the best thing that you've played since the Old Republic. And it's like, don't, you know, it makes me very worried for their other titles, because if this is the poopy that they're bringing to wipe onto my fucking screen, I don't think so. No, thank you. No, thank you.
Josh is trying to complete a bet to see how many times he can say poopy live.
Yeah.
I don't know why
It's
I
a
said
very
poopy,
nice way
but
of putting it. Yes.
I'm trying not to tangentially just.
Yeah, and chat mentioned Skull and Bone as well. I don't know. Like, I'm jaded. I'm so old in the video game market that like I don't trust Ubisoft to ever put out anything of quality anymore. Like, you can only be burnt so many times before you're like, I don't trust you. Sorry, right? There was something I was gonna say. You played the Assassin's Creed, the quasi-Roman one.
The
you
Greek
enjoyed
one
yourself up until you realized that the whole thing was a Skinner box trying to get money out of you, right? Like, there's 50 hours of gameplay because you have to grind for 50 hours to get what you could just buy with real money.
I was at 50 hours of gameplay and like a third of the way through the fucking game too, and I was just like, oh my god, I cannot do this anymore.
Yeah,
but it was no.
In my opinion, when it comes to shooters, if you want one, wait until tomorrow. There's a new shooter released every day. They're not great, but there's always new ones. Right?
There's always new ones.
So if you had your sights set on XDefiant, which sounds like a username from MARC, dating myself, maybe wait till, I don't know, a Marathon or Call of Duty Flub Zone, or
I'll give you some recommendations here in just a minute.
Yeah. There's a million of them.
Well, Nick, you have played a game recently that you want to talk about.
I get to be sad again.
You get to be sad again.
Podcast.
Yeah.
Speaking of being a grouchy old man, I recently played through Dredge. And by recently, I mean I played it for 2 nights. I think I put about 10, 12 hours into it, mostly because I was mindlessly doing stuff that I didn't need to do. My overall opinion of the game is
like
that
next, he's looking to dredge some stuff up.
I'm going to dredge some stuff up.
No.
This is a game that I don't believe is easily described wholesale broadly.
Yeah.
As with most games that, a broad amount of words, as with most games that have heart or that are good in some ways and bad in others, it just doesn't feel right to say, is this game good or bad? What does Dredge do well? Dredge is a spoopy eldritch horror game. Spoopy being my phrase for the lowest echelon of scary. It's right underneath spooky, right? And then you start getting like concerned and then terrified, and then you get into actual like horror stuff. It is very light on content. The atmosphere and the art direction that accompanies that is fantastic. What eldritch tropes and genre reliable things that you use are done really well here. If you've ever played Sunless Sea, similar vibes. Sunless Sea is very much a game that the gameplay itself is god-awfully glacially bad, but everything else about Sunless Sea is fantastic. This to me feels like a fantastic game to introduce like a young adult to the idea of eldritch horror. Someone between the ages of like 8 and 15 this might be like their favorite game. I really did enjoy the first couple hours as everything was new and fresh and the storyline was still progressing. You wake up as a fisherman, your boat crashed along the shore, and this mayor greets you in town. He's like, I don't know how you didn't see the lighthouse. I'm sorry. Like, let me offer you a deal. We used to have a fisherman here. He sucked ass. Take up the job. We'll give you some money to get you started. You can buy your way, through. just whatever you do, make sure that you're back here in dock before night falls. And you're like, ooh, spoopy, right? And then, you do that, right? You go out during the day and then night comes and some weird stuff starts happening. But overall, in 5-10 hours of gameplay, I was attacked in quote unquote combat / running away mode twice the whole game. I damaged my boat about 7 times in total. 5 of those was just running into rocks. But 2 of those 7 times was because I was running away from a monster. Right. The boat isn't perfectly, it drifts a lot. It tends to list. But I never had a single moment where I verbally went, nope, not doing that.
Yeah.
You're right. It was more mental, like, that's obviously a bad idea, or I think I'm going to turn around. Right. The gameplay loop is fun again for like an hour or 2. You go out and you're fishing and it's inventory management. It's a little like Backpack Hero in the sense, you're fishing up these things and there's a little mini game you play depending on the fish. You're either timing a button press or like moving through a little maze and you get the fish. And anytime you're doing stuff, whether that's moving your boat or fishing, real time is passing. So if you're not paying attention to the clock, it can get to be late and you're out in the middle of the ocean and it's dark out, right? That said, the dangers of the dark, once you get over that first couple hours of like, I shouldn't be outside in the dark, you're like, oh, this is really not that bad being outside at night. All that said, I really enjoyed the game. The main crux of the problem, and I don't know the developer's history, is that none of the game points you to wanting to interact with the difficult and scary parts of the game. There are some quests that require you to get things that only show up at night. It is easy enough. If you're really terrified of being out at night, this game actually scares you or you're afraid of losing your boat. You wake up at dawn 2 hours before night ends. And there's no time for the really spooky shit to spawn because your sanity meter doesn't have time to drop really low. So you go out, you see the fish. It's still technically nighttime. You grab them. I think I had 2 or 3 quests where I had to be out at night. Otherwise, there was seemingly nothing pushing me to playing at night, which means I'm riding a boat around during the day, getting fish, and I sell them for a modest amount of money. I upgrade my boat. I get more space. I get better fishing poles. I get better engines, all in the goal of earning more money to do the same thing. There's a main storyline. Main storyline's very Eldritch, very Cthulhu-esque in a gentle sort of way. It's really not over the top. There's nothing in this game that is horrifically violent. And it does have 2 endings. A bad ending that's kind of the standard one, and a harder to get but good ending. I did the bad ending not knowing that the good ending was it was mentioned in the game that there's another way to do it. I never really figured it out because I kind of burnt out on it. But what this game does really well is the art design and the user interface and the feel of the game mesh amazingly well. One really cool thing, and this is probably the best thing about the game, is you'll be fishing and you'll fish up a fucked up fish. Right. And there's this weird horror noise as you pull the fish out and there's a text dialogue and you look at this fish and its scales have been replaced with human teeth and its flesh is straining out of the weight of tumors growing underneath it. And you can see that in the picture of the fish and you're like, oh, that's gross. Right. And then you sell it and it sells for more money, I think. And there's a collection log you can go and you can try to collect all the different fish in the game. I'm sure there's some kind of reward. Doing certain quests, I got an Eldritch engine that was made of living hearts, and that's cool, but it's all flavor. Yeah. Right. At the end of the day, that engine wasn't really that much better than other engines that I unlocked an hour later in the game. So gameplay, very light. Actual spookiness, very, very low. Gameplay loop, very short to kind of master it and feel like you've played a lot of it. The other things, like I said, are great. Overall, I think it's a good game. Sure. I think it's probably worth $20. Just know that you're getting into a game that if you rush through it, it's 5 hours, right? Yeah. You're going to finish it in 1 evening. I finished it in 2, and that was mostly because I was just unconsciously, mindlessly grinding fish to upgrade my boat until it capped out. I was like, I don't really need to be doing this. Sure. I haven't encountered anything difficult in the game, but I did it anyways because it was 2 a.m. I had nothing else to do.
It definitely seems like a game with very little challenge is what it sounds like. Yeah,
the game is not challenging. And the quests and the puzzle, there are puzzles in the game. Games like this have puzzles, You know, you have to weave your way in between rocks, and then like, you know, you need these 3 specific fish to put into this rune to activate this thing so that you get a MacGuffin to turn into the quest giver, right? That's fine. It's all fine.
Yeah.
Right. It's not bad. It's okay. I really, it feels to me like kind of like novice game design. The fact that you have a lot of systems in this game about the dark being a bad thing, and it's clearly not a good thing to be in the dark, but there's no real pressure or reason to be out in the dark. You know, having like the quest more and more push you into the dark, or have, as you further the main quest, daytimes get shorter. I'm sorry, but you have to be out in the dark, right? Find ways to deal with it.
Yeah.
Get better lights. Use your eldritch powers, even though they have a cost to escape things. And when I say spoopy, I mean like I was out at night, and it was the second night, and it's like I heard a boat horn, and there's a boat looked just like mine going around in the water. I was like, oh, I haven't seen like another fisherman yet, but it is nighttime. Oh, what do I do? Oh, I'll go check it out. It's an anglerfish whose angler is a boat.
Neat.
Really cool. And instead of being like, oh, fuck, it's an anglerfish, it's like, oh, that's a cool idea.
That's cool.
And then I turned around and left because I could outrun it with my like starting gadgets.
Right.
You know, it's not scary. It's just like, oh, that's a really neat idea.
That is a neat idea.
But now that like that experience, you know, it's a first time experience, you know, horrors like that, you can only really explore it once. I mean, I looked it up later. There's a lot of creatures and monsters that like I just didn't encounter because like I guess I wasn't
you didn't have to be out at night
going
that often.
fully insane because
Right.
like to what purpose, right?
Yeah.
Other than to experience the content like a movie, like I want to see what the ghost shark is like, but I don't know. It was cool. It feels like it's a really solid entry in what could be a good series if more meat was added to it.
Yeah.
And they found that really difficult balancing line in video games when it comes to horror, and that you have to want the player to vie with themselves, because on one hand, the player wants to push forward into the unknown, but on the other hand, they're terrified too.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to force their hand. You just have to make that balance of scales happen in a player's mind, and hopefully they have the gumption to move forward, and they're terrified the whole time. That's the whole point of a horror game, right?
Right.
So for there not really to have any reason to interact with the majority of this game's interesting elements, again,
Yeah.
I give it.
You shouldn't have to pressure yourself to enjoy the game's
Yeah.
alternate elements, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, it sounds. To be honest, it sounds good. I mean, like if
because
mechanics
it's
are
so
solid and
short,
yeah.
it's like you're not losing that much. It's
Sure.
not like it's going to waste a week of your life and you're going to be pissed at the end that I didn't like the game. Just try it. Like if you like scary, spoopy stuff, you like games with great kind of feel and art design, go for it. It's worth it. So
excellent. Well, I got a little bit of hardware news, and then I'll follow up with that.
They have invented the Cube 2.
No, but so it's been a while since we've had a good VR announcement. Most of the announcements as far as VR and AR have been kind of lackluster. You know, Apple's got their thing coming out. Meta's always got their thing going on. And, you know, mostly headsets that aren't geared towards gaming are coming out. Fortunately, though, it looks like Valve is jumping back in the game. So Valve, kind of classically known as making like the best VR headset, which was the Valve Index. It looks like people have been scouting patents. And originally, while it looked like they might be making a new Steam Deck, patent hawks have looked into it and they've said, no, this is actually looking like different hardware. And it looks like it involves VR. So it looks like we are probably going to get a Valve Index 2 and seemingly relatively soon, because there are a lot of patents. And it looks like mostly final product. According to, you know, the people that look at patents for fun. So being that's the case, hopefully we see like a renewed energy for VR. Hopefully, especially with how big they're getting into hardware sales now, like the Steam Deck and its popularity, we might see hopefully a price decrease. Like what we've been seeing, instead of the satellites, which is what made the Valve Index so expensive, satellites being used to track your movement in VR space. That stuff has been better integrated into headsets more recently and into the controllers as well. It'd be nice to see that because that brings down cost because you have things like you might have all the components that you had with the Valve Index in other VR headsets, but in a new revision, having all those components in a single device rather than having to make satellites and extra peripherals might bring down the cost for the end user. Also, with their partnership with AMD, hopefully that also brings down the cost for the end user. So there's a lot of potential here. First of all, like, again, they made what's classically kind of supported as the best VR headset. So hopefully they can take that and make it into a smaller, cheap package for the end user in the near future. If not, then hopefully at least they make the next best, or, the next new best headset, right?
I forgot to bring it up earlier when it was relevant, but we did find this out. 60% of VR games right now are made in Unity.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean 60% of VR games are going to stop being made, because some of those devs are going to keep using Unity.
Sure.
But it is a strange time to be putting out another VR headset, given that, I mean, it's not like they had insider knowledge this was going to happen, but this VR already has its own troubles.
Yes.
It's got all the troubles video games have plus more. So for more than half of their library to potentially be under quasi state of maybe not existing anymore, that's scary.
It's an interesting time, but hopefully it also it drives additional development, right? Hopefully.
VR, AR, some kind of amalgam between the two. It is the end goal. Eventually, we're probably going to stop using peripheral things like controllers, assuming we don't blow ourselves up. So it's just a waiting game at this point.
Yeah.
Right. Eventually, this stuff will just be the status quo. I just hope it gets here before I'm too old to enjoy it.
Samesies. Well, other things by Valve that you can enjoy. I'm just going to keep this brief. The entire Valve library is currently on sale. And they've done this before, but this is the fucking 20th anniversary Steam sale.
Happy birthday.
Steam has been around for 20 years as of yesterday. This sale will continue going on until September 19th. But just to give you a little taste, the Valve Complete Pack, 27 games, $11.08. If that's not your jam and you just want to pick up Left 4 Dead 2, 99 cents. Portal 2, 99 cents. Left 4 Dead, 99 cents. Portal, 99 cents. Half-Life, 99 cents. Half-Life 2,
Blade
99
3
cents.
DVD.
The Orange Box, 5 games, $1.99. CSGO, 99 cents. Day of Defeat Source, 99 cents. So, if you're looking at needing a shooter in the face of XDefiant's failure, pick up one of these, dude. 99 cents for most of this stuff.
Some people really like CSGO.
I've heard of CSGO. But you know what I really like? Half-Life 2 Episode 1, 79 cents.
Yeah.
For less than $3, you can have all of Half-Life 2.
If you haven't played it, just stop.
Do yourself a favor.
So the one time you can stop listening to us is to go play Half-Life 2.
Totally fine. Put us on pause until you're done with Half-Life 2. Now, speaking of Half-Life 2, it's got a renewed graphics package that came out that supports DLSS 3. It's got ray tracing. You get all the rays. We didn't show it on the podcast, but Josh and I took a look at some of it, and it looks fucking awesome. Looks like the game came out this year. So go play on that pack.
I can't promise you that Ray Romano shows up and he's like, "That's Ravenholm. We don't go there." But it does have all the other rays.
It does. It's got so many rays. Speaking of Ray's, let's Nick, you have another game to talk about.
Ray's Food Place Marketplace. They're having a sale on meat. No, I do have another game. There are Rays of sorts. Blasphemous 2. Pardon my French. Blasphemous 1 is a game that I really, really wanted to play. The problem is that it is a Metroidvania roguelike, of which at the time, every single game in existence was a Metroidvania roguelike.
Yeah.
It is a fantastic pairing. It is cheese and wine. It is broccoli and orange mango, right? Again, sign up to our OnlyFans. You'll understand context. And I really wanted to play it, But after Hyper Light Drifter and Katana Zero and Rogue Legacy and fucking The Little of Binding Isaac I played and Hollow Knight and Ori and the Blind Forest, I was burnt the fuck out, right?
Sure.
And I had just played Dark Souls not too long before that. It's like, this game is so cool, I want to play it, and then I just didn't. Well, Blasphemous 2 is out. And I have to keep this brief because I'm literally only about an hour in. But after having played a lot of said roguelike Metroidvanias, none of them were exactly my speed. My speed is furrowed brow for hours. I take my time, if the game's going to cheese me, that's okay. Just give me time to cheese back, right? I haven't run into any exact cheese in Blasphemous 2 yet, but the set and setting, art, you like Dark Souls, you like weird gothic shit. It's there.
It's so good.
It's beautiful.
The art style is
pixel art in the last 5-10 years. Where is it coming from? I don't know. I am so thankful, right? If you don't know the story, I don't either.
Good.
You're some kind of penitent one because the town of the emperor was raised upon 3 pillars towards a beating heart in the sky that itself is sin against the gods, and you need to collect the blood of the unworthy to fuel your...
You'll have a better understanding if you play the first Blasphemous. Yeah. Yes.
Who's the guy who taped the thing to the church's door? These are my rules.
Martin Luther.
Yeah, this is Martin Luther if he was a goth. Right? Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know where that comes from. But it is a Dark Souls, if I use that fucking toxic term nowadays. Your first real fight is this boss fight we're watching here. And again, much like Armored Core, it's saying, hey, if you can't beat this guy, you're not going to enjoy the game. Yeah. So don't play it. Not really that hard. He had 2 attacks. It's a Metroidvania, so you slowly unlock powers. You find areas that you can't get to yet until you get another thing. You have the Estus Flask Healing. These are bile potions. I'm just watching it on screen. I love
He's gushing, and so is the game.
I mean, if you still don't know what I'm talking about, look up Czeslaw Beksinski's art. Look up H.R. Geiger, and imagine that they had Catholic guilt. That's what this game is.
Or watch some of the cinematics from the first game, because
do that. Probably just go play the first one. It's probably cheap now.
We Andy and I gushed on this game. I mean, just a few weeks ago at Summer Games Fest?
Yeah, no, it was during Gamescom. So it got showed off during Gamescom and launched during the same week. And I had to show Josh why Blasphemous was such a big deal.
Yeah.
And we watched some of the early game cinematics from the first game, and they are gorgeous. Now they weren't like the anime style cutscenes you get in Blasphemous 2. That's new to Blasphemous 2. They were actually like full pixel art and wildly stylized and good.
Chat's also mentioning they made some arguable, just general quality of life improvements.
Yeah.
The first Blasphemous apparently had a lot of instant kill situations and a limited selection of weapons and standard Metroidvania things like double jumps and clinging to walls and air dashes. This game adds that. You get a wall climb pretty quickly on certain walls. You get to pick from 3 weapons in the beginning, and you have a skill tree where you unlock new things. The parrying is doable. Oh my gosh. Every Dark Souls game has a parry system, and 90% of them, if you're not actively taking Adderall at that moment, you're going to miss that iframe window. This is very forgiving, at least again for the enemies I fought in the first hour. But yeah, my first option, I had a lot of cool options. I took a skill point. They made my parries even better because I felt that confident that parrying was the way I was going to go with my build. Yeah, I love it. It's right up my alley. I need a break from Armored Core 6 because I almost burned out on playing it so much. I loved it. So I'm going to dive into this. I'm going to come back full of guilt. Hopefully not a Catholic. We'll see. All right. And I'll report back to you with a more full review after I slog through this and get my ass handed to me for God knows how many hours.
Yeah. It looks, I still gush about the art style. I didn't play through the first one. I watched a lot of gameplay of the first one.
See, I avoided it because I knew I wanted to play it through.
Yeah. So, well, I knew that listen, my relationship with Metroidvanias is I play a lot of them and I burn out.
Yeah.
And then I have a cool down time, and then I play a lot of them and I burn out. And Blasphemous happened in a time where I was ultra burnout on Metroidvanias. Kind of this, it sounds like similar to your experience. And Blasphemous 2, again, real good, but like I've been playing Metroidvania after Metroidvania for demos so we can talk about them. And
if I remember right around the same time of Blasphemous was Salt and Souls, I think, or Souls and Salt, which was a very similar game. So it was more the situation that I just didn't look enough into Blasphemous to know that like this is one of the roguelites that's going to stick it out.
Right. Yeah, you watched Volcano instead of Dante's Peak.
Yeah.
You know, right?
That's a good
You
way to
watched
put it.
Asteroid instead of what
Deep
was
Impact.
Yeah.
the Bruce Willis one.
Yeah.
Armageddon.
Armageddon.
Yeah. So totally get it.
Yeah, I don't want to close my eyes. But,
Yeah.
you know.
Don't want to fall asleep because I'll miss you, baby. And I don't want to miss a thing.
I keep waiting for the end of the podcast. Are we done? Is
Yeah,
there
that
more?
was going to be the noise floor.
Oh, okay.
And you
well,
burnt it.
I did.